with the VA facilities there too.
Do you have any idea how many people you're expecting?
Unfortunately, no. In Bozeman, I think they serve both veterans and non-veterans, and I think the final number they came up with was they figured they served about 1,000. Libby, Montana has the largest stand down in the country. They do a 3-day stand down, and they serve, I think it was 2,500 veterans in 3 days.
In Libby?
In Libby.
My goodness.
Yeah, they have a huge showing there. Best guess, I would say somewhere between 150 to 200. At least that's what we're preparing for.
Have you modeled what you're doing after, say, Bozeman and Libby then?
As much as we can.
So for 2 days then, what takes place at the fairgrounds here?
They will, what will happen is a veteran will come to the main entrance of the fairgrounds. There will be a registration table there. They've got to fill out some basic demographic information, and hopefully they have proof that they're a veteran, be it a medical card or their DD-214, dog tag, something that would identify them as a veteran. Then they would go in and see the service providers. With the hand-up philosophy, it's not a matter of they come in, they get handouts, and they leave. We're going to require, if they're homeless, they will have to talk to the VA homeless coordinator. His name is Tony Schnell. And I'm also requiring that they see at least 4 other service providers before they're allowed to go over to the surplus and civilian clothing.
So the other providers that you're expecting to be there would be who?
Dawson County Domestic Violence, LIFT, the community colleges. We'll have a table there. Trying to think who else. Healthy Montana Kids will be there. A local dentist will be providing services there, just a basic checkup. We still haven't worked out the kinks as to whether or not he'll actually do any extractions or fillings or anything like that. I've got 2 VA nurses that are coming down on their own time. They're paying their own way to come down. Typically, for whatever reason, the Montana VA healthcare system has not supported stand downs, and I don't know if that's a budget thing or logistics or what happens. We did try to reserve the local VA clinic for a day or two, but just the red tape and the time that it would take to get that approval, there was no way to get it done. But we have one thing that I'm really happy about is I think we have about 30 various service providers, and Bozeman had about 20. So the Eastern Montana has really stepped up to the plate to make this thing happen.
Very supportive.
Yeah, there's been such a variety of volunteers. I think we even have some barbers coming down, or stylists.
Yep.
Or
the local hairstylists are going to come down and do haircuts. And in Bozeman, that was one of the most popular things. Is those ladies there, they had 5 of them. They were busy the entire time.
So, it's more about, there's so many things that are impacted on one of these events. It's very holistic as much as it can be with the resources available.
And Shannon, you mentioned to me earlier that you noticed in Bozeman that a lot of these homeless are traveling by vehicle, though.
Yeah, I think everybody has their own stereotype of what a homeless vet or a homeless person in general looks like, and generally dirty, mental health issues and that sort of thing. I was really shocked in Bozeman. I would say the average age was 30 or under, generally a husband and wife and small children. I think there were 3 of what I would say are stereotypical, homeless people that I saw, but for the most part, the people were fairly young, family-oriented, and like I said earlier, it was a case of they get discharged. It was during the recession. They'd rent a place, look for a job, and not be able to find one, so they ended up getting evicted, and they're living in cars or tents and that sort of thing.
Did you find that there were services then that could help these people find work?
Yes. Jim Korth is the Disabled Veteran Outreach Program operator up there, and he was really good about trying to hook people up, at least with even temporary type work, something where they could make a few dollars.
And most of these vets are just normal people.
Right.
Who experienced a horrific war.
Absolutely.
Not all of them come back disabled.
Right. The statistics are showing really high PTSD and traumatic brain injury rates now, and depending on who you talk to, depends on how high those levels are. I think some of them are coming back with those things. They don't realize they have them, and they're just so fed up that they don't want anything to do with the military or the VA, and they're not filing that paperwork that needs to be filed. But typically, like I said, it's very young, very clean cut. Just if you saw the people walking down the street, you wouldn't think that they were homeless.
Okay. Now you mentioned that you have a surplus area from in your stand down. Explain what that entails.
The resale shops, like in Glendive the Attic, and I can't think of the name of the one in Sydney, and then St. Vincent de Paul in Miles City have donated civilian clothing. We can put in for military surplus, and that can be anything from boots, socks, underwear, sleeping bags, sleeping mats, mosquito netting, long underwear, and that sort of thing. The problem with that is you can put in your order, but what they ship in the truck is only what's available at the time. And there's, with us being so far away, that warehouse is on the East Coast, and trucks break down, and sometimes things don't work out. So, but I'm confident that we're going to have an ample supply of that stuff to go around.
Okay, you're having a 2-day event. What
Right.
happens? Does it take 2 days? Do you expect people to come on the first day and stay over?
No. Typically, what I saw in Bozeman is people came in, saw the service providers, ate a meal, got the surplus, and they left. The reason for 2 days is just because of the area of where we're at. We've been working with the Fort Peck tribe. They're going to bring people up for 2 days, bus them back and forth each day, and I just want to make sure that we have enough time and for people, if they need services, that they can get here and get the services that they need.
Are there a number of Native American homeless veterans?
There are. The problem with the reservation is we can't even get an accurate unemployment count because the people don't fill out the surveys. They don't. You would literally have to go door to door to get that information.
How are you funded?
Most of it is going to be by volunteers and donations. We have put in for a $10,000 grant through Department of Labor Veterans Employment and Training Program. The problem is the turnaround time on that grant. We put in for it the end of February. We still haven't found out if we're approved for it or not. And even if we're approved, there's no guarantee that we'll have the funding at the time of the event. Bozeman knew that they were approved, but they didn't get the funding until quite a bit after their event. So,
And you would use the funding for what purposes?
we can use it to pay for meals. We can use it to pay for entertainment. If by chance the military surplus didn't show up, we could go buy every store in town out of coats if we needed to, that sort of thing.
Are you still looking for things for the stand down?
Absolutely. Coats, jackets, shoes, underwear, kids stuff as well as adult, women's clothing. That was another thing that I noticed in Bozeman is there were a lot of females that came through the line that were veterans.
So you're talking not necessarily brand new, but gently used?
Gently used, absolutely.
Okay. Shannon, you brought some interesting statistics with. Can you share those, please?
Like I said, doing part of this was what woke me up to the issue were the statistics that I found. 23% of the homeless population are veterans, and these statistics are from 2001. They typically don't include Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan veterans or females. So that's kind of where we're at with this. 5% reside in rural areas. There are 2 to 3 million to 3 to 5 million people who experience homelessness in America each year. If you take 23% of that, that would mean that 529,000 to 840,000 of them are veterans. This number has jumped almost every time I've looked at it. And on any given night, there's 131,000 homeless veterans. They figure that in rural areas like Glendive, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, that there are 26,000 to 42,000 homeless veterans in rural areas. And I did find some numbers that were specific to to our region. The study was done in 2006, and they found that approximately 280 homeless veterans permanently live in Montana, 1,000 in North Dakota, 98 in Wyoming, and 500 in South Dakota, and they estimate that those numbers have quadrupled. So in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming, we'd be looking at there's probably close to 7,500 homeless veterans that live in these areas.
Are they mostly in shelters then?
More than likely. You know, I know that the shelter in Billings is always full, and they have a veterans transitional center that's been essential in helping vets get back on their feet.
And North Dakota has a higher rate. Is there a reason for that you were able to find?
The only reason I could assume is because they have the Air Force bases there, and people stay around. You know, they get discharged and don't have anywhere to go, and so they stay around the area. They're close to Minneapolis.
That makes sense.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Continuing with more stats.
The suicide rates, in my mind, were mind-boggling. Between 2002 and 2006, an average of 53 Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans committed suicide each year. I read somewhere, and I don't have the numbers, but there have been more veterans that have taken part in Iraq and Afghanistan that have committed suicide that have been killed in country. So it's a huge issue. The suicide rate for men coming out of the military between 18 and 29 years old has gone up 25%. The only light at the end of the tunnel is if they do get hooked up with the VA, if they do get the counseling, it lowers the rate somewhat. But there's still not, because there's still, numbers are still coming in from Iraq and Afghanistan, so that it's not definite as to what success rate they're having.
Can you, the rates of suicide and the counseling available, are you in a position to say that the VA is recognizing this?
They have, actually. And Montana National Guard has a yellow ribbon program that they do. And there was a suicide by a Montana Guard veteran. I can't remember